If anyone ever offers you a copy of a lost SpongeBob episode, don't watch it. I did, and I can't unsee what I saw. You think I'm exaggerating. You think this is just another one of those internet campfire stories about cursed tapes and forbidden cartoons. I wish it was. I wish I was one of those people laughing in the comments, poking holes in the story, telling myself it's all made up. But the problem is, I know better now. I've seen what's on that tape. And the worst part? I'm not sure it's done with me. This isn't one of those rumors passed around from forum to forum, whispered by collectors who want to feel important. No, this thing is different. It's alive in a way I can't explain, like it wants to be seen, like it wants to keep spreading, and once you see it, you don't get to look away. I know some of you collect lost media. I know how you dig through eBay listings, obscure forums, even flea markets, looking for that one piece of animation history nobody else has. You want to be the first to upload it, the first to document it, to prove you've uncovered something the world forgot. But if you're listening to me right now, don't go looking for this one. Don't even try, because I wasn't the first. There were others before me, and not one of them made it to the end. That's the thing, though. Curiosity doesn't care about warnings. I told myself the same thing you're telling yourself now, that I'm different, that I can handle it, that I'm stronger than whatever scared the rest of them into silence. But you'll see how wrong I was. You ever feel that gnawing itch when someone says, "Don't look"? It's like the moment you're told not to press the red button, and suddenly pressing it is all you can think about. That's how it started for me. That's how it always starts. And before you ask, yes, I know how this sounds. Like bait for views, like another creepypasta that'll end with static and cheap jump scares. Believe me, I wish that's all this was. But I can't laugh this off anymore. Not when I still hear SpongeBob's distorted laugh in the middle of the night. Not when I still catch glimpses of frames burned into my vision, like the episode is replaying whether I want it to or not. If you keep listening, you'll know what I saw. You'll know why I can't sleep anymore, why I keep the tape hidden even though I should have destroyed it. But don't say I didn't warn you, because it didn't start with me, and it won't end with you. Anyway, it all began with something harmless, something innocent, just a hobby, collecting old cartoons. I've always had this thing for old cartoons, not just SpongeBob, but anything that carried that weight of childhood, the kind of shows you'd stumble across on a Saturday morning when your biggest worry was whether the cereal box had the toy you wanted. For me, collecting wasn't about the money. It was about chasing that feeling again, that innocent buzz of color, laughter, and ridiculous plots where nothing truly bad ever happened. At least that's what I told myself. The truth? I liked being the guy who had what nobody else did. Bootleg DVDs, region-locked VHS tapes, pilots that only aired once and were buried under corporate vaults. I hunted them like treasure. Some people drink or gamble. I scrolled through sketchy message boards at 3 a.m, refreshing obscure auction sites, convincing myself I was only researching when I was really hunting for the next rare find. You wouldn't believe how many scammers are out there preying on nostalgia. Rare Cartoon Network pilot, $500, guaranteed authentic. 9 times out of 10, it's a burned disc with some low-quality rip anyone could have torrented. I lost count of how many times I laughed at myself for falling for it, promising I wouldn't get fooled again, only to chase the next lead. That was the cycle. Cynicism, curiosity, disappointment, repeat. And then came the whispers. It started like background noise, someone mentioning a SpongeBob episode that didn't exist, a thread that disappeared before you could bookmark it. "Don't bid," one commenter wrote. "Don't touch it." Another claimed their friend had bought a copy and hadn't logged on since. The kind of cryptic internet folklore you scroll past, rolling your eyes while secretly leaving the tab open just in case. What made it worse was how vague everything was. No screenshots, no proof, just fragments. Only one copy exists. Animator meltdown. Final owner list. Phrases designed to hook you without saying anything at all. And damn it, it worked. I told myself I wasn't taking it seriously, but I checked every corner of the forums for days afterward. Then one night, there it was. A simple listing buried in a marketplace that looked like it hadn't been updated since 2007. No pictures, no description, just the words, SpongeBob episode, private copy, SB 1-29, AR. The starting bid was ridiculously low, like whoever listed it didn't care about the money. And that's what set the itch off in my brain. Why not? Worst case, it was another scam. Best case, I had something no one else did. I remember sitting there, cursor hovering over the bid button, laughing at myself. The rational part of me knew it was stupid, but the other part, the part that still wanted to be first, to hold something forbidden in my hands, was already pushing me forward. Looking back, I wish I'd closed the browser. I wish I'd gone to bed. Because 3 days later, the package arrived, unmarked. The package looked so ordinary, it almost felt like a joke. Plain brown envelope. No return address. No branding. Just my name, scrawled in handwriting. That was a little too neat. Like someone had practiced writing it, over and over again. When I picked it up off the porch, I expected it to be light, flimsy. But it wasn't. It had weight. It shifted strangely when I tilted it, like the contents didn't want to settle. Inside, I found a VHS tape. Not in a case. Just loose. The plastic was greasy to the touch, as if someone had handled it with unwashed hands. Across the top, etched into the shell with something sharp, were the characters SB 129 AR. The grooves were jagged, uneven, like whoever did it was in a hurry or wasn't looking at what they were doing. The tape smelled faintly of mildew and something else. Saltwater, maybe. That's the only way I can describe it. Like the stale tang of the ocean left behind in a seashell. I turned it over in my hands, half expecting it to be broken or gutted. But no, it was intact. Too intact, almost. That's when my roommate, Tyler, walked in. He raised an eyebrow when he saw me holding it. "What the hell is that?" "Supposed to be a lost SpongeBob episode," I said, trying to sound casual. "Probably fake. Just some idiot trying to cash in." He smirked. "Bro, that's some cursed tape, shitty. You're not actually gonna watch it, right?" I laughed, but it came out thinner than I wanted. What's the worst that could happen? It's just a cartoon. But even then, staring down at those scratched letters, I felt something shift in my stomach. Like the tape was daring me. Like it already knew the answer. I wish I could say I tossed it in the trash right then. I wish I could say I ignored it. But curiosity, God, curiosity is a drug. That night, I set it on the table in front of me. Tyler refused to stay in the room. He said he didn't want nightmares, and I teased him for being dramatic. But truth be told, I was glad to be alone. My hands actually shook as I fed the tape into the old player I kept for my collection. The TV screen blinked, static filling the room in a low hiss. The tape clicked, gears whirring, as if it had been waiting a long time to play. And then it started. No Nickelodeon bumper, no logos, no cheerful ukulele strum that usually kicked off the show. Just a cold, black screen that lingered for too long before the faintest hint of yellow appeared. The title card finally came into view, scratched and uneven, as though someone had drawn it by hand. Except there was no episode title, no help wanted or band geeks in friendly bubble letters. Just silence. Just SpongeBob's face, smiling, but off somehow. Too wide, too still. I leaned closer, heart pounding, and whispered to myself, "This doesn't feel right." And I was right, because the opening wasn't glitchy wrong. It was intentional wrong. At first, it looked almost normal. The theme song played, but slower. Not obviously slowed down like when you mess with a file's playback speed. This was subtle, just enough to make my ears strain. The ukulele twang was deeper, warped, and SpongeBob's iconic laugh, at the end, it dragged, like someone had taken the clip and stretched it until it lost all rhythm, leaving behind a wheezing, unnatural cackle. I remember leaning forward, trying to convince myself it was just a bad recording. Old VHS tapes degrade. Maybe that was all it was. But no, something about it felt deliberate. The episode itself began with SpongeBob waking up in his pineapple house. Familiar enough. Except there was no dialogue, no alarm clock, no cheery shout of, "I'm ready." He just sat up in bed. His eyes blinked too slowly, lids sticking like he hadn't slept. The background was quiet, too quiet. No whimsical music, no underwater ambience, just a faint humming noise that reminded me of a refrigerator running in another room. I kept glancing at the time counter on the screen. It felt like minutes had passed, but the tape showed less than 40 seconds. The camera followed SpongeBob through his morning routine, only there was no energy to it. He brushed his teeth without bubbles, combed his sponge holes with deliberate, sluggish motions. It was like someone was mocking the show, draining all the charm and replacing it with exhaustion. When he left the house, the streets of Bikini Bottom looked wrong. Empty. No jellyfish drifting, no neighbors walking by, not even Gary meowing goodbye. Just silence and that faint hum. SpongeBob shuffled down the road toward the Krusty Krab, his movements jerky, like frames were missing. That's when the first real crack showed. As he passed Squidward's house, the scene lingered. The camera didn't cut like it usually would. Instead, Squidward appeared in the window, staring directly at the viewer. Not at SpongeBob, at me. His eyes were too big, whites bleeding into the glass, and his face didn't move. He didn't blink. He just stared. I felt my throat tighten. I told myself it was a gag, some edgy animator's idea of a joke. But the longer he stared, the less it felt like a joke. The shot held for what had to be 30 seconds, far longer than any SpongeBob bit would ever last. And then, with no transition, it cut to SpongeBob inside the Krusty Krab. The restaurant was empty, lights flickering. Mr. Krabs stood behind the register, shoulders hunched. His claws clicked against the counter in a slow, irregular rhythm, like an insect testing its legs. He didn't speak. Neither did SpongeBob. They just looked at each other across the silent room. I realized my nails were digging into my palms. My chest was tight. This was a children's cartoon, and yet it felt heavier than any horror movie I'd ever seen. Then, without warning, the sound changed. The hum cut out, replaced by a low, distorted buzzing, like a wasp's nest inside a microphone. The screen flickered, a single frame flashing by too quickly to process. But my gut recognized it. Something was wrong with it. Something human and out of place. I paused the tape, rewound, tried again. The frame appeared for less than a second. SpongeBob's face, but hollowed. His eye sockets black, his smile jagged, teeth too human, too sharp. I froze, remote trembling in my hand. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't just a bad tape. This wasn't just a rumor. This was something else. I should have stopped right then. I should have ejected the tape, snapped it in half, and thrown the pieces in the trash. But the thing about curiosity is that it doesn't die. It festers. It twists in your head until stopping feels impossible. So I pressed play again. The scene picked up where it left off. SpongeBob, standing in the Krusty Krab, staring at Mr. Krabs across the counter. Only now, the lighting looked darker, like the saturation had been drained a little more. Mr. Krabs' claws no longer tapped. They hung limp at his sides. His mouth was open slightly, as if he was about to speak, but nothing came out. SpongeBob turned, slowly, and walked into the kitchen. His movements were sharper this time, less like animation and more like stop motion, each frame slightly off. The grill was cold. The spatula sat on the counter, crusted with grease. He picked it up, stared at it, then dropped it. The clang rang out unnaturally loud, echoing like metal against a cavern wall. I felt my stomach tighten. This wasn't how SpongeBob episodes worked. There were no gags, no jokes, no energy, just emptiness. And then the episode shifted. 1 second, SpongeBob was in the kitchen. The next, he was sitting in his living room. No transition, no fade, just a cut. He sat on the couch, hands clasped together, staring at the blank television in front of him. The hum returned, louder now, vibrating through the speakers. The camera zoomed in slowly, unbearably slowly, until his eyes filled the screen. He blinked once, twice, and then his lips moved. At first, there was no sound. Then faintly, a whisper crawled through the speakers. "I'm not ready." The words sent a shiver up my spine, not because of what he said, but because of how he said it. His voice was SpongeBob's, but stripped of all joy, flat, hollow, like someone imitating him without emotion. I told myself it had to be a fan edit, some dark parody someone cooked up to creep people out. But deep down, I knew better. The footage didn't feel like a joke. It felt intentional. Tyler came back into the room then, probably curious about why I was so quiet. He glanced at the screen, made a face, and said, "Dude, what the hell are you watching?" "Lost episode," I muttered. My throat was dry. "I think it changes," he snorted. "Yeah, changes your brain cells. Turn it off, man." I didn't, because right then, SpongeBob's head twitched on screen, jerking slightly toward us like he'd heard. His eyes, those blank, animated eyes, locked onto the camera. Onto me. Tyler cursed under his breath. "Okay, nope, I'm out." He left again, footsteps retreating down the hall. I almost followed him, but the tape wouldn't let me. I know how insane that sounds, but it felt true. The episode cut again. Now SpongeBob was outside, wandering through an empty bikini bottom. The sky was darker, a sickly gray-green instead of blue. Buildings leaned as if they were decaying. Windows were shattered, and everywhere he went, silence followed. He passed Squidward's house. The window was broken. The shot lingered again, but Squidward wasn't there this time. Just shadows. Then came the worst part. Frames that didn't belong. Too fast to catch properly. But I saw them. A single image of Mr. Krabs slumped over his desk, eyes black holes. Another of Sandy, helmet cracked, face obscured by static. Each flash burned into me, like the tape was searing them into memory. And all the while, SpongeBob whispered, over and over, "I'm not ready, I'm not ready, I'm not ready." I felt my breath hitch. The words weren't just coming from the TV anymore. They were in the room with me, bouncing off the walls, threading into my thoughts. Still, I didn't stop, because I had to know how it ended. After the whispers stopped, I sat frozen in front of the TV, heart hammering like I'd just run a marathon. The screen had gone black, but the tape kept spinning, the faint whir of gears filling the silence. I waited for the credits, for something, but nothing came. Just darkness. That's when the real obsession started. I told myself I needed answers, needed proof that I hadn't lost my mind. So I went digging. Forums, archived threads, even old image boards buried under dead links. At first, I found nothing. Just the same recycled myths about lost episodes, creepypastas dressed up as truth. But the deeper I went, the more fragments surfaced. References to SB-129 AR. Some posts were only a line or two. Don't ask about SB-129 AR. It's not a myth. Don't finish it. Most of the accounts that posted those warnings had been deleted. No activity, no follow-up. It was like they'd vanished right after speaking up. And then I found something that made my blood run cold. A cached page from an old Nickelodeon fan site. Buried in the comments was a name, David L., a former animator who supposedly worked on early SpongeBob storyboards. Someone asked about SB-129 AIR. His reply was short, frantic. "Stop asking. We didn't make it for kids. We didn't make it for anyone. It wasn't supposed to air." The post had been deleted less than an hour after it went up. I dug deeper. Hours turned into days, my room filled with half-empty coffee cups and sticky notes covered in scrawled connections. I barely slept. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw SpongeBob's face, whispering, "I'm not ready." What unsettled me most were the claims that SB-129 AIR wasn't just a cut episode. It was a test reel, a kind of experiment. Some said Nickelodeon commissioned it to push boundaries, to study psychological reactions. Others insisted it wasn't the studio at all, that it was made by someone outside, someone who slipped it into the archives like a virus. Either way, the message was the same. It wasn't meant to be seen. When I finally forced myself to watch the tape again, I knew something had changed. The episode didn't play the same way twice. Scenes appeared out of order. Whole segments were gone, replaced by things I hadn't seen before. This time SpongeBob didn't wander the empty streets. He sat alone at a table in the Krusty Krab, head bowed. His voice was clearer, heavier. "You shouldn't be here." The words weren't aimed at Squidward, or Mr. Krabs, or anyone else. They were aimed at me. I felt my throat go dry. I told myself I imagined it, that it was a coincidence. But then he raised his head, and for the first time, SpongeBob looked directly at the camera, directly at me. His eyes were wide, almost human now, pupils shaking like he was terrified. "You weren't supposed to see this," he said. "Now you're part of it." The buzzing static roared to life, louder than before, and the screen filled with jagged frames. Screams layered under the noise, not cartoon screams, but real, human. I scrambled for the remote, heart slamming against my ribs, but no matter how many times I pressed stop, rewind, eject, the tape kept playing. And in those final moments, just before the screen went black again, a phrase flickered across the bottom corner in white text. as if typed on an old computer. Archive viewer 004. I wasn't the first, and I wasn't supposed to be the last. After that night, life didn't go back to normal. It couldn't. The tape was gone. One morning, I woke up, and it simply wasn't where I'd left it. I tore the apartment apart, checked drawers, shelves, under the couch, even the trash bins, but it had vanished. Tyler swore he hadn't touched it. He told me I must have hidden it somewhere in a half-dreaming panic, but I knew better. The thing didn't want to stay put. It wanted to move on. That should have been the end. Except it wasn't, because even without the tape, I kept seeing it. In my dreams, the episode replayed in broken fragments. SpongeBob's whisper echoed through my head. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. Sometimes I'd wake up to the sound of his laugh, stretched and distorted, leaking through the walls like someone was playing it on the other side. I tried drowning it out with music, with noise, but silence always crept back in, and with it, that humming, that static. Tyler stopped talking to me after a while, said I was scaring him, said the bags under my eyes made me look like I hadn't slept in weeks. He wasn't wrong, but what he didn't understand was that I couldn't sleep, not when every time I closed my eyes, the tape kept playing. One night, desperate for answers, I returned to the forums. I left a post asking if anyone else had seen SB-129 AIR. Hours passed, then a single reply appeared before the account vanished. You've seen it now. That means it's already working. That was all. Since then, people I know have started disappearing. Tyler moved out without a word, his room stripped bare in a single day. A friend from the forums who begged me for details stopped logging in altogether. It's like the episode leaves a trail, and anyone who follows it too closely just goes silent. And here's the part that really keeps me awake at night. Sometimes, when I'm walking home after dark, I hear it. The faint strum of a ukulele carried on the wind. That laugh, slowed down, rattling in my chest like a cough I can't shake. I know how this sounds. I know most of you think I'm making it up. Maybe you're even laughing. But the truth is, I wouldn't be telling you this if I didn't think you needed to know. So here's my warning. If someone ever sends you an unmarked SpongeBob tape, don't watch it. If you've already watched it, if you've already seen the things I've seen, it's too late. Because it didn't start with me, and it won't end with you. Even now, as I finish recording this, I can hear it again. That faint theme song, muffled, like it's coming from another room. I live alone. The tape is playing somewhere, and I think it's already found its next viewer.